So right now I'm working on my top 10 list of my favorite games of all time, and it's been a really tough one to figure out. I I I look at games that I've loved for a significant amount of time for the most part. This time I'm looking at games that I own specifically. I figure if I truly love a game, then I'm probably going to own it. Um, I, I'm at the top three right now. I've done 10 through 4, and I really don't know what order to put the top three in. They'll have to end up in some order. Yeah, we'll find out. Hey, I'm Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and as I do twice a year, today I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite games of all time as of March 2025. Uh, I look at this list every 6 months, and I consider a bunch of different factors, but mostly I'm thinking about which games I am consistently really, really excited to play. Um, in a variety of formats, not just on the tabletop, sometimes on Board Game Arena or digitally as well. I primarily limit this list to games that I've featured at least multiple times near the top of any top 10 list, not just these biannual top 10 lists, but any top 10 list on this channel. And in general, Stonemaier games aren't eligible, though I'm going to make a little exception for this list for reasons that I'll talk about in a minute, because I like the games that we make at Stonemaier Games. Um, this time I did add a little twist. I often add a little twist to these top 10 lists. I only included games that I actually own. I thought about this because in the past, there's a number of games that I've included that I don't own because I have easy access to them. But I thought, for once, I just want to I want to include games that I actually own, that I love enough to make my own, even though maybe I have access to them via someone else or maybe via Board Game Arena. So I think that says something if you choose to own a game that you love, even though other people also own it, that Before we go in, I have a couple different categories to cover before I get to the top 10. So the first is I asked Stonemaier ambassadors for their favorite Stonemaier game and their favorite non-Stonemaier game. And I won't go through the full list of ambassadors. I'll mention the ones, I guess the games that got at least 10 votes. There's Apiary, got 10. These are in alphabetical order somewhat. Scythe got 58. That was by far the top pick. Tapestry got 22, Viticulture 23, Wingspan 24, Wyrmspan got 9, not quite 10, but very close. Ambassadors also picked their favorite non-Stonemaier favorite game, and games that received multiple votes here were Aeon's End, Ankh, Ark Nova, Arkham Horror, Azul, Blood Rage, Brass Birmingham, Castles in Burgundy, Dune Imperium, Gloomhaven, John Company, Lords of Waterdeep, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Magic, Marvel Champions, Marvel United, Nemesis, Orleans, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Root, Spirit Island, Terraforming Mars, and Ticket to Ride. I also asked my coworkers this question, and a few of them replied. Susanna said that her favorite is Tapestry. Erica said that her favorite is Ark Nova. Alex picked Star Wars Unlimited, and Dave picked Root. I also have some honorable mentions for me, games that didn't quite make my top 10 list, but came pretty darn close. Seven Wonders Duel, Spots, Let's Go to Japan, Cat in the Box, Blob Party, Hierarchy, Just One, Magic, Orleans, Rumble Nation, So Clover, Fantastic Factories, Skull King, The White Castle, Century, Space Base, Mysterium Park, Earth, Ra, Terra Mystica, and the Isle of Cats. I also picked a campaign game. I'm going to say that my favorite campaign game of all time is The King's Dilemma. Really looking forward to The Queen's Dilemma, hopefully this year. The digital game that I keep coming back to because I really love this game is Slay the Spire. If I had to pick a digital game, I'd go with that one. Now, one more step before we get to my top 10, we have our panelists. So these are people who closely follow Stonemaier Games, whose tastes are a little bit different than me because they play games in a slightly different way than I do. Carrie plays heavier games than I do, And Carrie picked Ark Nova as her top pick. She says, every play feels different and every decision feels important. I also enjoy the theme. Her other picks were A Feast for Odin and Terraforming Mars. Our solo gamer panelist, Aaron, picked Metal Gear Solid: The Board Game by Emerson Matsuuchi, a full recreation of the PlayStation 1 stealth game of the same name from the 1990s with a medium-light rule set, an easy-to-manage AI, engaging scenarios, and some moments that genuinely make me giddy. I keep coming back to this campaign game hungry for more. It's a game you can tell was made with lots of love. Aaron's other picks were Newsboys and the Castles of Burgundy. Our family gamer panelist Skylar picked Wondrous Creatures. Skylar says, Wondrous Creatures is a worker placement game with tableau building. My family loves the adorable meeples that you get to place to gain cards and resources. It feels very rewarding on every turn as you consistently gain more and more cool things. If you like whimsical themes and games with a huge variety of cards, I highly recommend this one. Skylar's other picks were Honga and the Fox Experiment. And last, we have our digital gamer panelist Abigail picked Wingspan Digital. Abigail says, I married into a family of bird watchers and ornithologists. Wingspan is the easiest game to get to the table and to the tablet, where my partner and I can pass my iPad, play on the Nintendo Switch, or play on our Steam accounts. Beautiful display, comparable gameplay, and bird sounds. Count me in. Thank you to Abigail, Skylar, Aaron, and Carrie for their picks. And now, without further ado, let's get to my top 10. So the first one is a bit of a cheat because I broke a few rules here. One, I wanted to pick a one Stonemaier game for the list because even though I think it's fair for me not to include Stonemaier games on these lists, I'm talking to, I mean, these videos are a big deal. This is my top 10 of all time. And sometimes it feels a little weird that I don't include Stonemaier games on them. So my cheat here for number 10 is I have two picks. One is a Stonemaier Games pick, which is actually two games. And the other is a pick that breaks my other rule, which is a game that hasn't yet appeared near the top of two of my top 10 lists. So the first half of this number 10 pick, the cheat pick a little bit, is Rolling Realms and Rolling Realms Redux. That's why it's two games, same rules, just different mini games found in these games. I love this game. I love this game partially because it's many, many different games in the box. There's realms designed around a variety of games from Stonemaier Games and also from non-Stonemaier games in Redux and in the promo packs. And so I love the super vast variety of combinations of realms as you try to solve this puzzle. I love that I can play this. I play this frequently. I play this once a month. I do a live play on it. I don't get tired of it. I look forward to it every time I do this. So I love the variety and the replayability. I love the puzzle. I love that it's fast, that you can play it round by round or a full game. And I love that it scales infinitely. I love that this is a game without player interaction. I do love games with player interaction, but I love that this is a game that I can play against anyone, anywhere, at any time, because all that we're sharing are the same three realms and the same rolls of the dice. We don't even have to play at the same time. We don't have to be in the same place. And I think that is an asset for this game. So Rolling Realms Redux is my cheat pick for number 10. My other cheat pick for number 10 is The Gang. This is the game that hasn't yet appeared near the top of multiple top 10 lists for me, simply because it is very new. I love poker. Poker is a game that I played on a weekly basis for a long time before I hosted my weekly game night. And The Gang gives me the feel of poker because it is a poker game, but with a cooperative element. It plays faster than poker. There's no money involved, and you still get that burst of endorphins when you look at your hand. Because if you have and the magical thing about this is in The Gang, a good hand has that magical feel. Like I would be excited if I got this hand, but a bad hand also has a little bit of a magical feel because in The Gang, the puzzle with limited communication with the other players is to figure out the order of quality of each of your hands without actually knowing how good each player's hand is at the end of a Texas Hold'em style round of poker. And so having a bad hand actually can feel good in this game because you might just know I have the worst hand of anyone. And that is less stressful, less tension than having a middle ground hand where that can be really confusing because you have to get the order exactly correct. I've had a blast playing this at different player counts, generally 4 or more, with a variety of people. I love The Gang, and I expect it to show up on more of my top 10 lists, including probably the next cooperative game list that I make. So that is The Gang, my second cheat pick at number 10. Let's get to number 9 now, and this is Clank, a game that I've played in every form that Clank is available, the Legacy form, Catacombs, Clank in Space, and the original game with many expansions. And I haven't played the second Legacy game yet, but it's on my shelf. I'm excited to play it soon. I love Clank. I love that it's this deck building Euro-y adventure where you're using the cards in your deck and making your deck better to crawl through this dungeon and different paths to collect different treasures along the way, different cards along the way, a variety of things that you discover along the way. the combination of the card play, the deck building, plus the light dungeon crawling. Like it is a little bit different than other dungeon crawlers, but this is definitely my style of dungeon crawling, where you can kind of you're not fighting with other players. The battles don't take up 30% of the game. They're really snappy. You either have the resources to kill the monster or you don't. And just the elements of discovery and choices that you have as you move throughout these paths in Clank, I find really, really satisfying and fun. And I also like to push your luck puzzle. How deep do you go into the Clank dungeon before you decide whether or not you need to run back out? I love that decision in this game. So Clank is my number 9 favorite game of all time as of right now. At number 8, I have Downforce. Downforce, I love this game. This is definitely by far my favorite racing game. I love how snappy it is. So some of these games are fast. I have some shorter games on my list, some longer games, and I think the brevity of Downforce is an asset for it, especially given that it can play up to 6 players really smoothly. On your turn, you have one decision. It's what card to play, and sometimes you have the choice of where you actually move the cars that are on that card. But I love how simple that is, that you have this puzzle of you have these cards in hand. Your hand is never changing. You are deciding when to play these cards so that it benefits you the most, probably benefits some other players a little bit, but maybe doesn't benefit them as much as it benefits you. I also love that you don't necessarily have to have the card that crosses the finish line first. Being second or third, maybe even fourth is viable as long as you bet correctly along the way. And I kind of love placing bets in this game that are a little bit of a gamble that maybe others don't see coming, because I have this information in hand that maybe I'm the red car, but I know that my cards really help the green car, and the green car might not be in first place right now, but I know that I'm going to be helping the green car. I love that. I love that element of Downforce. So yeah, Downforce is my number 8 favorite game of all time as of right now. Number 7 is Caution Signs. It seems every year I have a different game of this style, a large group, kind of party social style game with elements of creativity that go both ways, where you get to be creative about writing something, choosing a word, drawing something in this case, and then you get to be clever about guessing what that is or what that means. 2 types of cleverness in games like this. And Caution Signs does this beautifully. This is the style of game that is hitting my table again and again, and has for really the last, 4 or 5 months ever since I got it. We played it just the other day at a game night. The rules, you can see the rules here on the screen. These are the rules to the game. That's it. And although aside from step 4, we don't play with points. We play cooperative Caution Signs, where our goal is to get all the guesses right in any given round. And if we do that, we feel good about it, and then we play another round of it. That is how we play Caution Signs. And it is delightful to play that way. You get a random pair of 2 cards. You get 20 seconds, which is not much time, 20 seconds to draw something that reflects this flexible cow in this case. And then you mix up all of these cards in the middle of the table with some other cards from the deck. And the guesser, there's one person who's the guesser, is trying to pair these cards with the variety of drawings that they have on the table. It's a clever concept, clever hook. That is well done. But I also think the cards the words that they selected, Danielle and Scott, the designers of this, are very, very clever. There are cards, there's crocodile and alligator. How do you tell the difference between crocodile and alligator? And you would be surprised about how often those 2 cards show up in the same round. There is angel and angelic. What do you do then? We had a great round of Caution Signs where angel showed up and angelic showed up, but they weren't paired together. And angelic was paired with a bird, and angel was paired with something that ended up looking like a bird. So the guesser really didn't know, is this like a fly? I think it was flying. Does this a flying angel, or is this an angelic bird? You have moments like that. I'm remembering this from over a month ago, and somehow it's still in my memory because it was that awesome. Caution Signs, fantastic game. Fantastic game. This is my number 7 favorite game as of right now. At number 6, we have Cartographers. Cartographers, I think this, for me, hits a really nice sweet spot of a surprisingly meaty game. There's a lot of great decisions to make in Cartographers in this game, where you're drawing polyomino shapes to meet a variety of goals. Surprisingly meaty game with these choices that plays fully simultaneously in a very reasonable amount of time. You could probably play it in 30 minutes. It might stretch out a little bit longer than that. The amount of creativity in it is huge, because you are creating a map of this portion of the world. You're trying to meet these goals and decide how to prioritize these different goals that you're going to score twice throughout the game. And there's a little bit of kind of push your luck uncertainty. You don't always know exactly when the round will end. You don't know which shapes are going to come up. There's also a nice sense of progression because when you surround these mountains, you earn income. That's points that you gain from round to round. And there is even a nice touch, a little fun touch of chaotic player interaction, because there are times when monsters will show up and you will need to pass your map to the player on your left or your right. And they are going to mess with your map a little bit because they are going to draw the monster on your map. This is a wonderful game. For all those reasons I mentioned, I love the game, but I really think it hits that sweet spot of a surprisingly meaty game that teaches and plays in a very reasonable amount of time. That's Cartographers, my number 6. Is that my number 6? Yes. Here's my number 5, Star Wars, the deck building game. This is a game that I have so many little things about it, little and big things that I love about it, that I've come very close to making a video that just talks about my top 10 favorite things about this game, because I really, really love it. It is a dueling style game. You can play 4 players if you have the expansion, which is also a standalone game. We typically play it 2 players. In fact, I think I've only played it 2 players and had a blast doing that. One player plays as the Empire, one player plays as the Rebels, or in the expansion, it's the Republic and someone else in the expansion, or the standalone a sequel to it. I'll just mention the 2 things that I often mention that I really love about this game. One, I love that you can't destroy something from the other person's deck. Once someone has invested in something, you can't destroy it. But the Galaxy row, this card row in the middle, you can see the cards are facing each player. This mechanism is so cool because you can interact with anything in this card row. You can buy the cards that face you, or you can try to take out using the force, or not force, the kind of power, resource. You can take out cards that are facing the opponent. So you can prevent an opponent from getting Boba Fett if, well, in this case, say Lando's neutral. The Ala X. I don't want my opponent to get this card, so I can spend 3 to prevent the opponent from getting that card, and then I remove this card. So there is a great level of player interaction in this game, but it deals with the Galaxy row, not what players have already invested in. The other thing I really like are the bases. Not shown in this. Oh, no, here's one. Here's the base, Alderaan. Actually, Coruscant is shown here too. Each player has a base, and that base often has an ongoing or comes into play ability. And I love the idea that you are playing through at least 3 rounds of this game, where you start off with a base. When that base is destroyed, you put another base into play. And that is a huge decision space or time in the game, because you are deciding what base best benefits me at this moment to give me a better chance of winning than my previous base. And there's a lot of different bases to choose from. I love that decision. There's so much in this game that I love, and that I'd love to see in other games as well. I just have a blast playing Star Wars, the deck building game. And the theme doesn't hurt because I love Star Wars. So that's Star Wars deck building at number 5. At number 4, I have what I would consider for me to be a fairly cozy game. This is Lords of Waterdeep. This is a comfort game for me. I only own it digitally. And so someday I might just need to go ahead and buy the tabletop version, because I really love Lords of Waterdeep. But I do oftentimes, if I just want to relax and play a digital game that isn't Slay the Spire, as I mentioned earlier, it'll be Lords of Waterdeep. It's usually Lords of Waterdeep. It's a kind of a classic worker placement style game, but it has a lot of little details that I really like. I like that you're adding new actions to the board in the form of buildings. I love you have a secret goal that you're pursuing. And I really, really love the design of the missions, or the quests. They're called quests in this game, where you are trying to gather the resources and or money to complete the quest. You can see it. This one right here wants 3 black cubes and 6 money. And then every quest gives you a different benefit. Some just give you points. Some give you points, or a lot of points in some cases. Some give you points and more cards. Some give you points and an ongoing ability. Some give you points and more resources, so you can turn one quest into another quest on your next turn. The quest design in this game is top-notch, superb. I love how it doesn't just feel like you've completed something and now you have to start over from scratch again, because so many of the quests lead into the next step of the game. Some of them, yes, do just have points, but most of them have something else that is leading to other decisions that you'll make in the game. You have made progress by completing a quest rather than starting over from scratch. Excellent quest design, or mission design, or contract fulfillment design, whatever you want to call it. I love this in Lords of Waterdeep, my number 4 pick for this list. And number 3, Dune Imperium / Dune Imperium Uprising. I love both of these games pretty much equally. They do have a slightly different flavor in terms of what they do, but I love the deck building. I love the worker placement. I love the influence tracks that you're moving up. How every game feels different because you can't. You probably could, but it's very, very difficult to move up all 4 influence tracks each game. You kind of have to choose a few to focus on and a few that you're probably not going to accomplish all that well. I love that there actually is combat in this game. Combat is not something that I seek out in games, but I like that it's something that just happens at the end of every round. It just happens. You're involved. You're either involved or you're not involved, and that's okay. I love the tension of having, you only need 10 points to win this game. At higher player counts, you don't even need 10 points to win this game or to end the game and potentially win this game. So many little great decisions that go into this game. I also love that it's a deck building game where you're only playing 1 card on your turn. You're not playing through a big hand of cards, which does work with many deck building games. It works with Clank. But some games, deck building games, it can really slow down because you're playing so many different cards on your turn. Dune Imperium allows for these, because it's playing 1 card, it allows for pretty robust designs of these cards because you're only playing 1. I love this game, Dune Imperium. I played it most recently, Dune Imperium Uprising, with the Bloodlines expansion, and I had a great time. Yeah, this is a fantastic game. My number 3 pick for this list. Leading into number 2, Ark Nova. And really for these top 3, it was tough. I got down to this top 3, and this could change on any given day, depending on maybe how much time I have to play a game. But I love Ark Nova. Megan and I recently played through the entire deck of Ark Nova over the course of 3 games. We didn't repeat any cards. We just played 3 games back to back. I think multiple days in a row. Maybe there were a few little breaks, but we just had a blast playing it 2-player, seeing every card in the deck. And I've chosen this photograph in particular, both because I love cats, but also because in this game in general, I love the little sense, the number of incremental senses of accomplishment that you get when you play simply by being able to play a card. This card needs a building that can fit a animal of size 3. You need $11. You need these 2 tags, either on other animals or on your player mat. There's a lot that goes into just being able to play this card, and then you get a benefit from the card. And so you have to decide, like, when is the right time for me to get this benefit? So every card has this sense where you're building up to actually being able to play the card and then deciding exactly when is the right moment to play that card and put it into play and have it give you an impact from then on. These tags might help you accomplish goals. They might help you play other cards. And most recently, I would say one of the things that I recognize about Ark Nova that I didn't fully appreciate before is that there actually are 2 key resources in the game. There isn't just money. There's also simply the action selection system, how it inherently makes certain cards more powerful. And those power levels, 1 through 5, are a resource that you get to spend on sponsor cards. And that's kind of just a free resource you get in the game. You don't have to gather anything to get that resource. You just have it. Or it's all about timing and when you play cards and when you remove cards from the action selection row. Such a beautiful, clever design. Ark Nova, my number 2. It was only edged by another nature-themed game, Forest Shuffle, because I realized something recently about Forest Shuffle. I have pursued the expansions for this game, I think, more than any other game's expansions that I've ever pursued. I don't have access to one of the expansions. I only have one of them in my game, but I contacted a local game retailer, Fortuna Games, wonderful little store here in St. Louis. I contacted them months ago to say, like, hey, I want to buy these expansions from you. Let me know when they get in stock. And I've actually followed up a few times. Not that I needed to. I trusted them to follow up with me, but I talk to this retailer from time to time because I run a publishing company. And I always kind of bring it up because I genuinely want to buy this expansion. And that to me was just a signal that among the many things I love about this game, I'll mention a few of them in a second, just that it is a game that is worth, that for me was worth pursuing, that I'm excited to share with other people. I'm excited to play it whenever we get the chance to play it. And that expansion, how I pursued that expansion was just a signal to me that I think this is my favorite game right now. This is Forest Shuffle. And Forest Shuffle, one of the things I love about it is that every card, or most cards in the game, are actually 2 cards, because there's a card on the top of the card and there's a card on the bottom, or it's split down the middle, card on the left, card on the right. So every card that you have that you draw isn't just one card. And when you gain this card, you might gain it face up from the forest row, thinking, I'm going to play this bird. I believe this is a goshawk. This is a non-English word, havoc. Maybe I'm going to play it for the bird. But then the longer it remains in my hand, the frog might actually be the more valuable use for it. Or I just might use this card to play another card, because the cost to play cards in this game is to discard other cards. So I love the flexibility of how each card is 2 cards in this game. There's so much more to love about this game. Like, I love just the variety of set collection and icons and how they work. It is and it looks beautiful on the table. It comes together for a really, really wonderful experience. I also even love the tension of not knowing exactly when the game will end, because you need to draw the 3rd winter card in this game from the bottom third of the deck. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be the very last card of the deck, or it could be really close up to the top. You don't know. Yeah, so many, and even the tension from the, I can go on and on about this game. I love Forest Shuffle. It is my #1 favorite game right now. Thank you for bearing with me for this longer than normal video. Hopefully it gave you some ideas either as a player or as a designer for games that you might want to pursue. I've had a blast playing these games. I'm very grateful to these publishers and these designers and the artists and everyone who put time and effort into these beautiful games. They're inspiring. They've brought me a ton of joy, and I'm glad for the opportunity to share them with you. I'd love to hear your favorite picks, maybe your favorite picks from my top 10. Feel free to share your favorite Stonemaier game if you want to, and maybe share your top 3 favorite games of all time as of right now. And if you have any particular metric or method that you use for selecting those games, I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks.